Good afternoon and welcome to today's presentation, Properly Understand and Investigate Your Audio, Video, and Digital Evidence for Use in Mediation and Trial. The information presented by the expert is not to be used as legal advice and does not indicate a working relationship with the expert. All materials obtained from this presentation are merely for educational purposes and should not be used in a court of law sans the expert's consent, i.e. a business relationship where she or he is hired for your particular case. In today's webinar, David will discuss 13 tips to prevent crucial mistakes with audio, video, and digital evidence, issues regarding admissibility of audio and video evidence in court, options for recovering erased hard drive and smartphone files, preparing audio and video exhibits for clarity and best results, and challenges of presenting audio, video, and still image evidence at trial. To give you a little background about our presenter, David Notowitz is the founder and chief audio and video forensic expert at NCAVF, a nationally recognized forensic digital media lab trusted by police departments, public defenders, large insurance companies, and private attorneys to assess and clarify recorded audio, video, and digital evidence. The expert witness testimony by NCAVF, presented in clear, concise language, and with an approachable style, has consistently proven in post-verdict jury interviews to be crucial to a jury's understanding of the facts of a case. Mr. Notowitz is an Emmy Award-winning producer and multi-faceted video and audio evidence expert. His past specialties include commercial, feature file, and evident video production. In 1986, he started Notowitz Productions and produced daily television news for Financial News Network. He produced and edited corporate videos for clients such as Fox, Yahoo, GM, IBM, and Disney. Attendees who require passcode, the word for today is evidence. During the Q&A session, we ask that you enter this passcode into the Q&A widget for CLE reporting purposes. The Q&A is located to the left of your screen. Please remember that if you're applying for CLE credit, you must log onto your computer as yourself and stay for the full 60 minutes. You are also required to complete the survey at the end of the program. Please note that CLE credit cannot be given to those watching together on a single computer. Tomorrow morning, we will send out an email with a link to the archive recording of the webinar. The slides can be downloaded from the resource list at the widget located at the bottom of your screen. Thank you all for attending today. And David, the presentation is now turned over to you.
Great. Thank you very much to TASA, to Rochelle Hall, and to Lauren Pickhart from TASA. They've been really kind in helping prepare this for you guys. I hope that everyone is ready to ask me questions because I just love questions. I love hearing from you, and I'm happy to try to answer them as best I can. If I can't answer the questions during the talk because there's too many, we just can't get to the details of it, happy to talk to you afterwards. So let's move forward. This man here was the first major case that we had, the first high-profile case. He was a police officer facing 20 years in jail. And this is the verdict. Our clients are often defending, in this case, or they're prosecuting. But the most important thing is that they want clarity. They want to know what's going on with their evidence. And I suggest to you that you get clarity too. Whether it's audio or video evidence, make sure you know what's going on, whether it's positive and good for you and your client, or it hurts your client in the case. I still highly recommend you at least know the truth so you can plan for the strategies and tactics for responding in court, because the other side's going to know these things most likely. If they don't, great. If they don't find out some of the details that might hurt you, fine, great. But most likely, they're going to know. They're going to figure it out. So you got to know what's there to respond. Our job is to think obsessively about the evidence and try to figure out how we can help you and how we can help clarify and figure out what's going on with the video. Okay, so what do? We're an audio and video forensics firm. One of the jobs we have is to gather evidence. We could gather it for you. We don't do all these jobs for every case, but sometimes we're brought evidence, for example, in this situation where we're gathering, and the evidence that we're given, we know is not the highest resolution possible. We can go back to that surveillance system and re-download it at a higher level. Another thing we do, I'm giving you an overview now, and we'll get to details in a few minutes. We enhance footage, we enhance audio, clarify it, zoom in on it. We analyze, so we might help you figure out what's being said. We might write an audio transcript for you, or we might help you understand, what are we seeing here? What are we seeing on this video, or what are we hearing? The other thing we might do is help you prepare the material for court. So that means adding circles, zooming in a certain way, adding loops, preparing it so that it's very easy for you to use without fumbling in court with your evidence. And the last thing we do is sometimes, not very often, it's pretty common that all the attorneys will stipulate to the work that we do, but you may want us to testify. We may need to testify because maybe the other side does not stipulate. So then we need to testify as an expert witness in court about what we did to create this evidence. That's an overview. What we're going to do today is talk about a lot of tips and mistakes that we've seen in court with audio, video, still images, cell phone evidence. We hope to help you avoid those yourselves. We've seen these mistakes in court ourselves all the time. And that's why I started this class, because I want to help you guys avoid them. I realized I could teach a lot in this area and help attorneys. So that's why I'm starting this class, and that's why I'm teaching today. If you have any questions, okay, any questions at all, let me know. Let us know. Write in the questions. You're going to see specific examples from our cases, from stuff that we worked on ourselves in our firm. Those specific examples will be generalized for you as well. So I'll be able to give you the specifics of the cases, and then we'll talk in general about how this can apply in general to your cases for the future. Please ask questions. All right, tip number one, let's go to it. One of the things we find is that the reports that are made by the police can be extremely valuable to us when we analyze the video and audio evidence. And I'm going to give you an example where the report was given to the attorney, it wasn't given to us, and then we requested the report from the police when they originally downloaded the evidence, and we learned a lot more that was helpful to the case and became pivotal. So here's, I'm going to give you a background. First, I need to tell you one more thing. A lot of our evidence is video and audio. Today, in this online presentation, we picked out stills from the video because, streaming video can be more difficult on these kind of situations. So you're going to see stills from video. Okay, so here's a case, a surveillance video case, where we were given video. You'll see a camera. You see where the satellite dish is on the roof. Right below that satellite dish is a video surveillance camera. We were given footage from that camera. The footage we were given was coming from that camera, and it showed this video. Okay, that's the angle that the camera showed. It's an arrest, and the important thing about this is that's the only camera angle we were given. But when I realized as I'm watching through the evidence, going through the evidence, looking through still pictures of the scene, I said, wait a minute, here's another still picture. If you look in the corner of this building at the top to the right, there's another camera there. It's like a white camera with a black dot. I hope you guys see that there. That's a second camera, and we were never given the evidence from this camera, the video evidence. And I looked at the report. I said to the attorney, give me the report. I want to look at this. And it mentioned there were multiple cameras. Now, cameras aren't always working. As you guys probably know, there's a lot of surveillance cameras that are down. They aren't working at that moment. But I thought there was a chance. So I read the report, and there was video taken from this camera. And it showed a much big, and it wasn't given to us, which is, as a defense, when we're working on the defense, that's a major problem. The defense is supposed to be given all the video evidence, right? All the evidence in audio and video. So then we asked for that. It turns out this is the evidence that we were given for the second camera. Here we have a suspect running away. The next frame, you see the police officer chasing him. It gave a huge context to the incident. Up on the top now of this screen, near where it says CH8, right underneath the CH8 is an officer running by. That's a second officer. So the context became very important, not to get into the details of the case right now, but this gave us a much bigger picture of what happened and worked very effectively to help the defense in this situation. I synchronized, as you can see here, this is a still image, but I synchronized both cameras and we played them in court synchronized together, allowed us to see the entire event as it unfolded, at least this part of the entire event, a lot better, rather than just the one camera. So the bottom line is, with this particular example, number one, read reports and request all surveillance evidence, because sometimes the police assume it's not important when it really is. In addition to surveillance, you might find stuff on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. You can find video all over the place. Plus, erased from hard drives and phones, you can often, or I should say sometimes, recover videos that had been erased already. The second tip I want to talk about today is assume that you have a tight recovery deadline. A lot of this evidence disappears, gets reused on the hard drives or out in the online world on the cloud. Let's say it's a Ring device, a Ring camera, or any surveillance that might be stored in the cloud. A lot of this evidence gets erased after a month. And some of the systems that are based in people's businesses, the DVRs, the digital video recorders, those might be erased in a few days even. So you have to assume a really tight recovery deadline, but I wouldn't give up hope. Try, because we've even seen stuff that lasts for 6 months or even longer. So just get your investigator or yourself in gear ASAP. Recover this video and audio. One thing that's very specific on these systems, whether it's a local system in a business or even online, is the time might not be correct. So when you're trying to recover evidence from a particular date or time, make sure that your system, you realize at least that your system might not have the right time or date on it. Get the highest resolution possible. If it's important to you, if details are important, where you have, let's say, taser wires that are important to see, or the bulge in a guy's pants holding a gun, if there's a gun there or not. Those kind of things can be very important, of course. You want to get the highest resolution possible of the evidence. Very often, for example, people might use their phones to record surveillance video that's on a computer screen. That means we're recording with a phone, something that's really on a computer screen. We're losing a huge amount of resolution. We need to go back to the original evidence as much as possible. That's one of our big pet peeves with attorneys, is get the original evidence. And we do that with them. We work with them to do that. Take possession. Now, this is for big cases, but if you have a camera, for example, that captured an incident, the camera may become very important later on down the line. We're going to see an example of that later, where you might want the camera to help us recreate the scene and help you make measurements of the incident location and what happened. Maybe the height of someone, or the speed at which they're moving, or the speed of a car, the distance between a suspect and an assailant, or a suspect and an officer. Those kind of things can be very important. And that if you have the camera, if it's a big case, you want to have the camera so you can use the lens to help you in the recreation later on. All right, number 6. Don't accept your audio or video evidence at face value. What do I mean by that? Well, you might look at your evidence and say, wow, this is what I got. The reality is, it may not be what you got. There may be a lot better that you can get, and it may be misleading. Your evidence and video and audio evidence can easily be misleading, and you don't even know that it is because you don't know what to look for. That's why you call us or call a video expert. Let me show you an example of that. Here we have video evidence that was brought to our company by an attorney. It was already enhanced by someone else. I could see right away that it was enhanced because of the graininess and brightness of the image. And there was this really strange flash in the evidence. I said, what is this flash? How did this get created? And I started thinking about it with the enhanced video. They brightened everything so much that this flash got enhanced brighter too, and it just blew out any detail because of some really bad work by another company. The attorney didn't know what to do, didn't know what he had in his hands, but thankfully he came to us and we can explain, let's go back to the original file. And they said, really? And so we looked at that original file. And I said, there's going to be detail here. We went to the flash and it looked more like this in the original. And I said, we can actually fix this. It's actually a negative image of that section of the video. We realized that it could be corrected, it could be reversed, and we got some amazing detail out of this image. Here is what it looks like when we got done with that particular area. Again, I'm not going into the details of the case right now, but I will go into some details in other cases. But right now I'm showing you the enhancement that we did, which originally looked like a flash. I'm going to show you, go forward and show you the comparison between the original video and what our enhancements look like. This is an enhanced image that shows a man reaching into his coat moments before he was shot. This frame became super important in the case. And as you can imagine, made in this situation, a reasonable officer would have shot this person. We're not going into the details of the case right now, but I will be happy to talk about it with you offline. Here is the original footage as it looked when we got it. This still image here, and I'm going to jump to the next image, which shows our enhancement. I'm going to show you, go back again to the original, and then our enhancement. Okay, so don't accept your audio and video evidence at face value. Always look at it with an expert's assistance, because you don't know what you might find. We're going to go into another example of this right now, which is also helping understand number 7 of my tips, which is give your expert sufficient time to review the evidence. I'm going to give you the background of this case now, called The Ballerina Lied. Picture this, a ballerina, 100 pounds. She does beautiful dancing since she was 5. She was trained in Russia. She got in a car accident where she claimed that her knee was damaged and she could no longer be a ballerina. It was very sad on the stand. She testified, she cried, she could no longer do her ballerina, and she was a prima ballerina. She was like the star of her troupe. And she was suing the person that she got in the car accident with. Well, of course, we went looking for footage of her dancing because there was tons of dancing. She said she claimed her knee was injured. She could no longer use it. Her knee was not damaged, she claimed, at all before the accident. But after the accident, her knee was badly damaged and she could no longer do her shows. So the attorneys, the insurance companies looked all over the place for footage. We did find footage of her dancing 6 months after the accident. She claimed that, guess what? She had to give up her troupe. After the accident, she could no longer dance. Well, we let them know that we found this footage. And it shows her dancing after the accident. We didn't let them know something else. We found footage 5 days before the incident, 5 days before the crash. We didn't tell them about that footage. We let her testify on the stand. We got her to say that she never wore bandages on her knees, that she was never injured before the accident, that everything was working fine on her body, and we never let on that we had footage from 5 days before the accident. But guess what? I found, through really careful review of all the videos that we had gathered, a very interesting detail that they did not know we had. In rebuttal, we brought it up. What we did was, I put all the video clips onto my attorney's iPad so that at the moment that we needed to play the video, the attorney could bring that iPad up to the judge and show the judge this rebuttal evidence and show the other attorney on the opposite side this video evidence, and the judge could rule. The jury did not have to be let out. The jury did not have to move, and the witness could stand the stand. This allowed everything to go really smoothly and quickly, and the judge approved us showing this video from 5 days before the accident, which showed, I don't know if you can see it, but on her left knee, only her left knee, is an ACE bandage showing there was previous injury on her left knee. And only her left knee, and that's the one she claimed was damaged before the accident. That was only found because of our spending a huge amount of time, as number 7 says, give your expert sufficient time. We spent a huge amount of time watching ballet dancing. I did, which was actually quite fun. I actually spent time with my wife watching ballet, which was enjoyable, but zooming in on it, looking for anything that might help our case. I thought maybe we would find a ballerina tripping, hurting herself, falling, things like that, twisting her ankle or twisting her knee during a performance. But this was the gold mine. This was the jackpot. We found she was wearing a bandage around her left knee. And that was only after a lot of time looking through footage. It paid off a lot for the insurance. The jury came back with complete defense verdict. Okay. The next example I'm going to give you for tip 8. Tip 8 is about researching technology and researching it behind the evidence. What does that mean? Well, one of the examples, let me give you a few, but one example of researching technology is something called metadata. Do you guys know what metadata is? I can't hear you. No, I'm kidding. I know you can't answer. But metadata is the data that's stored behind any image, and I'll explain what that means. Your phones, your computers, when they save an image, the image will also store in it all kinds of interesting information, such as the date the picture was taken. Sometimes the GPS information, the location of where you took the picture or the video, or the audio sometimes. It might tell you the program used to create that image or that audio or that video. That just gives you some sense of what metadata does. And it's stored with your images. When you have an iPhone, it stores the data. It knows exactly where it was taken. Okay. Let me explain this case now a little bit. Again, if you guys have any questions throughout, just email them, send them in the way that Rochelle has explained to you, and then you can ask questions, and we'll try to get to them when it's time for the questions. Here we are. A woman was claiming that her husband was abusing her. She brought evidence, pictures of the damage that was done to her body, and she claimed date of the incident. Here on the bottom, you see a date. I don't know if you can read that, but it's 9/29, I think, or 9/28, 9/27, something like that. So September, remember that date, September 29th. That's when she claims that the abuse damage occurred. We got a hold that the attorney was representing himself. He was the one being accused. And the attorney was representing himself and hired us to help him. He knew he didn't do the abuse, so he wanted to figure out what is going on here. We got a hold of her hard drives, and we got pictures that were remarkably similar to these. And I'm going to show you those now. Here's a picture. You can see it's very similar. Not exactly the same as those other pictures, but they didn't bring these as proof. They didn't bring these to the trial as evidence. And wondered why. Well, this picture has metadata on it. And then we found another picture exactly, or looks exactly the same. Both of these two were not brought as evidence in the trial. Why not? Well, remember the date was 9/28. The date on these two pictures, we looked at the metadata, and if you look on the top left there where the arrow is, you'll see it says June 30th, 2014. June 30th. So that's kind of odd. That's 3 months prior to her claim. And then we found this picture's metadata says September 28th, 2014. So that matches her evidence. So strangely, there were pictures taken 3 months prior to the evidence that she brought that matched her evidence. The judge in the case, after I testified, and after we went over this very carefully, threw out the case in the middle of the trial, threw it out, because the evidence that she gave was obviously incorrect. That's the metadata, and that's researching the technology behind the evidence. Here's another example I'm going to give you. Frame rate, researching the technology behind the evidence. Do you guys know how much frames per second is video? Do you know that? What is the frame rate of video? You know, like it's, video is made up of individual images combined together, played very quickly together in a technological way. Some frame rate, like on an iPhone or a cell phone today, a smartphone, is usually about 30 frames a second. It can go even faster now. You can have 60, 120 frames a second, but typically still, most people use 30 frames a second. But in surveillance video, what is the frame rate? Well, surveillance video, like from your homes or businesses, it's not necessarily 30 frames a second. You often have much slower, maybe even 5 frames a second, 3 frames a second, 7 frames a second. Why does that matter? Because things can be missed. Events can happen. I know it seems like it's impossible, but many events can happen in between frames at such a slow frame rate. Something's 5 frames a second, you can miss a lot in between each frame. And that can be crucial in your case. And you need to understand that, whether you're a prosecutor, a plaintiff, or a defense attorney defending a civil case or a criminal case. You need to know this detail. So here's an example where a frame rate issue can be misleading. There's 2 different cameras. both with the same frame rate, and yet we're going to see that a man who fires a gun is seen differently by these two cameras. Here's an example first where a man is about to fire his weapon from two different angles here. You'll see in the next frame a puff of smoke around each gun, around the hand. And I'm going to move forward now one frame. You'll see a puff of smoke around the hand. Okay. You're able to see the puff of smoke, but you weren't able to see the discharge of the weapon in terms of the flare that would happen from a gun. Because the frame rate didn't allow that. That was missed. Here's another, the same guy, the same case. He fires another shot slightly later on, just a few seconds later. Here he is pointing. And guess what? In this situation, we do see the flare on the top frame. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to go back one frame. You see the man's left hand raised with the gun. And as we go forward one frame, you see the flare of the gun. Most of the time, you're not going to see a flare of a gun because the flare happens very quickly. It's very unusual that you'd see it. What you might see is kickback from a gun. If that's the right term, I apologize if it's not. I have a gun expert here in the office that deals with gun issues and gun cases. But this shows you that in this particular case, if you're looking for when the gun was fired, how many times, you may not know. You may not be able to tell by the surveillance video. Maybe he never fired one shot. Maybe he fired many, but you won't necessarily catch it all. That's an example of frame rate, only one example, and there's many, how frame rate can mislead or help you to misunderstand the evidence. If you just accept for what it is, you need to first research the technology, understand your frame rate, understand the surveillance systems, understand the settings, what happens at night, during the day, the differences, many, many things that can affect your evidence and how you might bring an expert witness in to testify about that. A third area that I'm just going to bring up quickly with you is camera lenses. How do camera lenses come into play with your surveillance video? Well, let me tell you. Cameras have different kind of lenses. Some are wide angle, some are telephoto. That means some include a much wider area when they take an image, and some are a very focused, narrow area when they take an image or video. I'm going to show you an example of that. Why does that matter? Well, we'll talk about it more in a minute. Here is one way that a camera can be hooked on to a police car. Right in the middle of the window, toward the top, you see the camera. Hope you guys can all see that. Can you see the camera? Well, that camera has on it a wider angle lens than maybe your smartphone would have. So it can mislead people in terms of how it looks to be, in terms of distance. How far away is something? Here's the camera again from inside the officer's car. Again, at the top of the screen in the middle, that's the camera that's used to capture that event. We'll go forward. This is what it captured, but only on the left side. There's two different cameras, so two different videos, but they're synchronized for this court case. But look on the left, and you'll see the hood of a car at the bottom third of that image on the left. The top 2/3 is the image that it captured of some people. Now, what's the issue? Well, in this case, I'm going to talk about one specific issue, which was how should the officers react to these individuals? Are they extremely far away? Are they very close? How much time would the officer have to react if these guys charged the officer? Does the officer have a right to tell them, back off from us because you're too close? So issues like that, this camera and this image on the left is a wide angle image. just like, and we're going to continue talking about this case more in a minute, but just like your rear view mirrors that you have on the side, your side view mirrors on your car, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. In other words, the wide angle lens, it's very similar to this mirror, which creates a wide angle image. When something is wide angle, everything is exaggerated in terms of distance. So when you look at this image again now, these people are much closer than they appear. And I testified to that in court on this case. We brought in a camera, we set it up, we showed the jury how a wide angle lens can exaggerate distance, make things look much farther away than they are. And I like to use the actual evidence when I demonstrate this as well. So I showed them that an officer walking from, here we are, look on the left again, you see an officer standing by a car's right door, and he is going to be, in just a few seconds, walking in a calm way, walking in a slow way. He's going to be right up to the next car within literally a few seconds. So that's walking in a very calm way. So how much more so if someone was to charge, how much faster that would happen. This wide angle lens that exaggerates the distance. And it was important because I didn't want the jury to be misled and for them to think that something was much farther away than it was. So always keep that in mind to analyze your camera lenses, look in the technology behind them, and make sure that everything is clear to you. So when you go to court, you're ready to testify. Now we've got some questions maybe.
Thank you. If all the attendees can enter in the passcode for today, which is evidence, and any questions that you have for David. Our first question is, can you explain how to go back and retrieve evidence from a Facebook account?
All right, so this requires often an attorney's subpoena to Facebook. And I don't know all the legal ways to do that, but I know it's been done. I just don't know how cooperative Facebook is in that kind of situation. What we've done before with cases is we've created Facebook accounts actually that are not real accounts. And we've friended people. So that's like a little bit of a tricky way to do it, but we try to find ways to friends of friends kind of thing. And that way we can see some of the posts and go back. But we have to be very careful about all that kind of stuff. But we've done that kind of work under the radar.
And this is just a follow-up of that first question. Is there a way to get into Facebook private email and go back and get old conversations, etc.?
The same answer, basically. We don't do it. You can't do it in a simple way. It has to be done through official means, through Facebook, and you have to subpoena it through a judge, most likely, to get a warrant to do that. I'm not sure of all the legal implications of that, but we have definitely enhanced videos that we've gotten from Facebook. We've done searches for clients, and we've done work on Facebook.
Next question. Can you tell if video has been sliced? Or spliced?
Right. Can we tell if video has been spliced? Well, we often review video evidence to look for those kind of issues. And there's different methods to do that. I'm not going to go into the technical issues, but sometimes, yes, sometimes we can figure that out. We can also figure out, is this video original evidence? Sometimes we're given video and we say, well, this is not the original evidence, so give us the original so we can actually compare it. We might be able to look at the technology of that evidence that we're given and say, we can tell through the metadata, but also through the compression of the video, we can tell through the resolution, this is not the way the original smartphone recorded it. And so we're not getting the original. So it's important to tell the attorney that as soon as possible. They can go back through their chain, try to figure out what happened. And can we get a more original piece of evidence to analyze, enhance, zoom in, clarify the audio, and move forward on the evidence.
Can you tell if there was audio and videotape that has been withheld?
It's a very general question, and I'm happy to, tell you that we'd have to look at the case more completely. We look at, as I said before, look at the reports. We need to look at the method that we got the evidence. We need to look at, again, the resolution, the compression. Also, the way that the video is given to us with the extensions. Is this the original evidence? And if it is or is not, then that helps us move forward to ask for more things from the other side. We've often found that either through neglect, accidental, or maybe it's on purpose, I don't know, we're not given everything. And especially if we're working on the defense, that's a major problem for a case.
Next question, how do you deal with issue that the enhancement is not a true and accurate depiction of what was originally displayed?
Can you read that again to me?
Sure. How do you deal with issue that the enhancement is not a true and accurate depiction of what was originally displayed?
I see. So sometimes we do work on video. So we'll do brightness. We'll improve the contrast. We'll maybe adjust colors. Those kind of things. We might zoom in. We might slow motion. We might pick a frame. Yes, we do those kind of work. So sometimes the report will be enough. We'll explain what we did. Sometimes it's not enough in the report only, and we have to actually testify about it. If we testify about it, we can recreate every step of the enhancement. We can say, look, here's the original. We put it into this enhancement software program. We didn't change anything except to do this. We enhanced the contrast, the brightness, the colors. And if an attorney is, it's important to our client, we want to make it as easy as possible for the client to have their evidence accepted. We will just enhance enough. We'll just zoom in maybe. And we won't adjust the brightness or contrast if that's an issue. And we explain it by saying, look, all we're doing is doing exactly what people do with a magnifying glass. We're just taking a magnifying glass like up to a book, looking more closely at a page or a photograph. That's all we're doing. And we have never had our evidence not be accepted in court.
And our last question for this section, have you done work with police body cameras? If so, what are some of the issues with picture quality, etc.?
All right, so police body cameras, yes, many times. Police body cameras, when they're worn by officers, they're very bumpy, right? Everything is bouncing around as the officer. Let's say the officer is chasing someone. Well, sometimes we're asked to stabilize that as much as possible. We can do stabilization techniques on those body-worn cameras. So if the officer is running, you actually stabilize the image so it's easier to watch and you can watch the details of what's going on. That is one area. Another area is sometimes things are at night or bright lights get in the way and distort things. So we worked on many, many body cameras, yeah. We work on body camera footage all the time we get it in. Sometimes it's working for a defendant who was in jail. Sometimes it's working for a police officer who's accused of officer-involved shootings or officer force, use of force. So we've worked on both sides of cases many times with body camera footage. And the good thing is, these days anyway, body camera footage is very good resolution. Some of the older stuff is not as good resolution, but the newer stuff is really nice resolution.
Thank you, David. You can continue with the presentation.
Okay, great. One more thing about that body camera footage is that it allows us to, let me move to the next frame here, might as well. There we go. with the body camera footage, we can zoom in a lot more. And the body camera footage also has audio, so we can enhance the audio for it as well. We've done a lot of audio enhancement work on body camera footage to try to understand, for example, an officer's voice is very close to a body camera, of course, because he's wearing it. But the suspect, or the person he's talking to, or someone in the background, is much farther away. So we've done a lot of balancing out of those levels of volume and enhancing audio so that you can understand what the conversation was and what happened in the incident. All right, let's move forward. And the next step is tip 9, determine forensic measurements. Well, what does that mean? Well, there's a lot of measurements you can make with video evidence using some really cool new techniques. You can build 3D models of an incident area, and you can determine height of someone, maybe with the idea of excluding them as a suspect. So if you can determine someone's height, let's say you determine someone's height is 5'8" in the video height of the suspect, but your client is 6'2". Well, maybe that would exclude them from the case. Like, you can say, look, this is not our client because he's 4 inches taller than the person in the video. That's just one example, but also speed, distance between people, all that stuff can be determined with surveillance video recreations of the incident. What we can do is we can combine the surveillance with the 3D model to make those measurements. I'm going to show you some examples right now. There was a very high-profile case where a suspect stole a car, then he crashed that, stole a horse. Yes, believe it or not, stole a horse, and went on a 2-hour chase with the police. When they finally caught up to him, the video was captured from thousands of feet up from a police helicopter, from a news helicopter. Now, because it's so far away, everything looked very flat. I don't know if you can, it's hard to tell maybe with this still image, but these bushes look very flat. And I'm giving you one specific issue that we looked into, that we were asked to look into. And that is how tall, case number 1 as it says here, how tall are objects, how tall are the bushes in this situation? How tall were they? There's only one specific detail. There were many details that affected the case, of course. But what we did was we went back to the location to determine the height of the bushes. We brought a 3D laser scanner. You can see it in the bottom left there on this picture. Look at that, middle of nowhere. It was a good hike, actually, but middle of nowhere. And we set it up, and we captured 3D of the location. After that, remember, we're trying to figure out the height of the bushes. After that, we created a 3D model using that material. And here is just one example of a bush area. There's a photo overlaid with the measurements. I'm going to back it up one step. This is the surveillance. This is the 3D model. And then we overlaid that with reality, a real picture, image, and we showed the measurements. Now, obviously, there's just one little detail. I'm just trying to give you an idea of some of the possibilities here with the evidence that you can go back to a scene, scan it, and use it in court. Here's another example, case 2 in this particular area, talking about which lane is the car. Which lane is this car? On the far, towards the middle of the left side of this image, on the left you see headlights. So we're just trying to determine which lane that car is in. And that was very important to the case. Not to get in details of why, but it was. So which lane was that car in? Okay, let's see. We go back to the location. We look at Google Maps, actually. We go back to that surveillance image. This was taken of this is actually of the surveillance from the case. It's a still frame from the video. You take a ton of pictures. Go back to that location, take a ton of pictures to build a 3D model. On the right, you'll see one of the pictures we took. We marked on it all kinds of areas that we could recognize. The lane separators, the electricity poles, lamp posts, speed signs, everything that would be unchanged since the incident. And we build that together with a bunch of other pictures to create a 3D model. Here's another picture. As you can see, the marks, there's some dashes. Those are areas that we marked and linked all these pictures together to create a 3D model. Once we have that 3D model, we can overlay that model. Here's the model on the right. We can overlay the model onto the left, which is this original surveillance video, to figure out which lane the car is in. And in this instance, we see in lane number 1. The car ended up being in lane number 1. And that was an important aspect to the case. And that's what the attorney had tasked us to do. Here's a little bit closer up. You see a box on the, let's see the left image here. There's a box in the middle of the lane that represents the 4 tires of the car. And so we could see what lane they were in. You guys, never assume that you can't do some work on your evidence, on your audio and video evidence. Bring it to us, bring it to an expert, and have them advise you about it. Because there's always new tools and new techniques. We got stabilization, which we mentioned when someone asked about body cameras. Stabilization is really helpful in that case, but also GoPro videos and handheld videos. There's all kinds of tools now to stabilize an image and make it much easier to watch. We got synchronizing. Today, there's so many sources of video and audio that we're asked to synchronize them all together into one timeline. And that way, all the different videos can help to clarify each of the other videos and what happened. Some of the video might have audio, some might not have audio. Here we have on the screen right now 4 different sources of video evidence in a particular case that we worked on. 4 different videos going on simultaneously that were synchronized. Some of it's surveillance video, some of it was handheld cameras, and some of it was some smartphone evidence, all together. This happens all the time in our cases now. But we will see another thing that comes up is audio. That people might, like for example, police were audio, or someone might be on a 911 call, and that could be synchronized. That 911 call can be synchronized to the video evidence. There's always new tools and always new techniques, and you don't want to lose sight that things are always changing, technology is always improving, and it might be the time to go back to an old case, even from a year before, to see if you can maybe get better assistance now with the newest technology. One thing we do all the time also is recovering hard drives, cell phone videos, digital camera videos. Even if it's been erased from digital cameras, there might be a way that we can restore stuff. We've done it many times where we restored images that they said were erased, but they really weren't. They were just, it's like cell phones and digital cameras and hard drives, they have a directory, like a table of contents. And the way programmers often work is they'll just, to erase it, if you erase something, it just erases it from the table of contents, but it doesn't erase it from the actual hard drive or the cell phone or the digital camera. So you can go back to that and you can restore those images because they're still there. We have only about 7 minutes left, so I'm just going through these. As you can tell, it's a whirlwind of information. I've been going as fast and efficiently as I can. You'll probably have many other questions to talk about with us. If you need to, you can reach us. Setting up in court. I want to talk about that really quickly. Should you use an Elmo? Well, an Elmo, you guys know what that is. It's like an overhead display on a projection screen. Well, that's old style. A lot of courts, unfortunately, are not technologically advanced. That's what they have. It could be good for certain uses, but I would say most of the time, no. Mostly not. And I'm going to show you, in a few minutes we have left, some reasons that you can use an Elmo and other times when you should not. Most of the time, I would say not. Here is an example of the case that we had shown you a few examples of a few steps back. This is the actual courtroom. All right. You can see we bypassed the projection screen and we put up our own TV, flat screen TV. And that was very important to show very small details in the case. A projection screen, you lose a lot of detail. Here's another TV in another case. We wanted to see the taser wires on a taser, and that's how it looked. Here's how we set it up for the jury, very close, large screen. The jury can always look. Right next to the witness stand was the TV, so the witness could point right to the TV, and the TV would show the evidence in the highest quality possible. It's important. If it's important for your case, you got to do it right. We also set up screens for the judge if necessary, so the judge can see their own small screen. If, let's say, the main screen for the jury is at too strong of an angle, and the judge can't see that as well. So we set up a screen right for the judge, and there's a circle there showing the TV setup for the judge. The placement of the media station, the reason I think that's important is I don't want the jury seeing what I'm doing if I'm preparing evidence, let's say. Or I don't want the audience in the courtroom to see what I'm doing either, because sometimes there's press, and I don't want the press seeing what I'm doing. So I very carefully place myself in a way, if we're going to be in the courtroom setting up or presenting evidence, I set up the screens that no one else can see. That's important. I don't want the jury to see. I don't want the audience members in the courtroom to see what I'm doing before we're ready to present it. The screens are good for one reason, and that is for keeping text up in front of a jury. I'm talking about the projection screens. You can see on this image, it's good to have text up for long periods of time. Text is it's clear enough. It's not great, but it's fine. Transcripts, segments, jury instructions, that kind of thing, perfect for those screens. Because while you're showing video on these other nice high-resolution HD flat screens, while you're showing that video, you can leave up on the left, in this situation, on the left, you can leave up the text that might be good for them to see during, let's say, closing arguments, or when you're trying to make a point, like a PowerPoint even, could be shown up there. All right. I know our time is short. I'm skipping over a bunch of things here. We just won't have time to talk about them today. But I would love to talk with you further if you want. I can talk about these issues. One thing to just keep in mind is there's wiretapping laws. So in California, and I don't have this up on the screen right now, but let's go to this for now. We'll leave it up. But in California, all sides need to know that a recording is being made. So there might be an audio recording that was illegally made, right? At the same time, I've seen in court a number of times when a judge has allowed this evidence, even though it was illegally made in California, to be brought and used in a criminal case. The judge says, look, I'm allowing the evidence in. You guys can sue the other person later for having recorded inappropriately the conversation, but I'm using it. I'm allowing it. So a judge has a huge range of opinions that they can bring. They can say, no, you can't bring it because it was made illegally, or they can say, yeah, we're going to use this evidence. However, later there might be another trial about the fact that the recording was made. So I've seen that happen too. In other states outside of California, some states have only a requirement that one person needs to know the recording's being made on one side of the conversation. That's not the case for all states. It's only some states. You need to know the details for your jurisdiction. What are the laws for recording and what's the laws for that being allowed in court? So that was a whirlwind. It was fun. Does anyone have any more questions?
Thanks, David. If all the attendees can enter in the passcode for today, we only have time for one question, so all unanswered questions will go directly to David after the presentation. Question, is it possible to manipulate metadata in a way that makes the changes undetectable?
Can metadata be manipulated so that it's undetectable with the changes? Yes, actually it can be now. And this goes back to chain of evidence and understanding, are you going back to the original source as much as possible? And what is the chain of evidence? Like who held the evidence and for how long? Because yes, metadata can be changed.
Thank you.
You got it.
Please remember that if you're applying for CLE credit, you must have attended for the full 60 minutes of the presentation. You're also required to complete the survey at the end of the program. And just a reminder that all certificates will go out via email in 24 to 48 hours. In addition to being your best source for testifying and consulting experts for more than 60 years, TASA also offers free interactive webinars, expert written articles, research reports on expert witnesses, including the Challenge History Report 2.0 and Expert Profile 360. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for attending, and most especially David Notowitz for his time and effort in creating this presentation. If you would like to speak with David, or if you would like to speak with a TASA representative regarding the expert witness for a case that you are working on, please contact TASA at 1-800-523-2319. One of my colleagues will be following up with you regarding your feedback on today's presentation. Thank you all for attending. This concludes our program for today.